here, but this is my little contribution. So here we go. Um, it has been said that covenant is just a contract, and I have to respectfully disagree with that. It is not just a contract because contracts can be broken. Contracts can be gotten out of if you know how to do it, if you have a good lawyer to find the loopholes or whatever. This is more of a sacred thing. This is a sacred thing, and it has to do with family, God's family. And so we're going to go into this. This is what we're going to learn. Oh dear, can I get rid of this little box here because I can't see what I have written? Um, Covenant is sacred. To break it means death. Covenant is a family thing. God never made a covenant with Gentiles. In order to come under this covenant, one must leave behind paganism and or self-centeredness. In order to redeem us, Christ had to become our nearest kinsman. Abraham believed in Yeshua, Jesus, and it was counted to him for righteousness. The Abrahamic covenant directly affects our salvation. Okay, so we'll take that first one first. The covenant is sacred and a family thing. Thus saith Jehovah, where is the bill of your mother's divorcement? I don't know what's going on. How can I get rid of this little box? Can I move it? Oh, I can. Oh, okay. All right. Where is the bill of your mother's divorcement, whom I have put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Behold, for your iniquities have ye sold yourselves, and for your transgressions is your mother put away. So this is God has really adopted us into his family. He has married us. He wants us all to be one family. And when we are unfaithful to him, it's like a wife being unfaithful to her husband. And there's a serious lag here. Okay, so everywhere Abraham went, he built an altar to Jehovah. Remember that the promise that all nations should be blessed in Abraham specified even families. The religion of Abraham was a family religion. The family altar was never neglected in his household. This is not an empty figure of speech, but comes from the practice of the fathers to whom the promise was made, and of which we are partakers if we are of their faith and practice. And that's from this book, The Everlasting Covenant. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. That's John 4:21 to 24. Now, you can see the Jews had a special place for quite a while, and God hung on to that because he had made a promise. He'd made promises. So let's keep going. No wonder Paul says, Abraham looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Abraham understood that this was a much bigger picture than he could see. Uh, okay. I believe he had acquired the understanding from his grandfather Shem that everything God was doing from the fall of mankind and onward was for the redemption of the human race. He knew it was important for him to produce an heir, not for the wealth he had accumulated, but in order to provide a lineage for the coming Messiah. For this reason, God had called him out of Ur, the land of Babel, requiring him to leave his father's chosen gods in order to produce a nation unto Jehovah. God never made a covenant with Gentiles. In his own Torah, God forbade Israel to make covenants with Gentiles. People who say they are Gentile Christians under a new dispensation are speaking out of ignorance. Okay, let's look at that for a second. God never made a covenant with Gentiles. And when Jehovah thy God shall deliver them, the Canaanites, before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Deuteronomy 7:2. And yet, the ancient Christian church in Rome did make covenants with pagans, thereby losing their identity until the leaders of the Church of Rome do not worship God, but make prayers to Lucifer. Now, in order to come under this covenant, one must leave behind paganism or self-centeredness, or both, actually. There were others who worshiped Jehovah, but God chose Abraham, whose seed would bring forth the yet future Messiah. If we are Israel, we have left paganism behind. If Gentiles wish to be a part of our family, they must do the same. Didn't Yeshua say that very thing? He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So we have to leave everything behind that gets between us and God. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Matthew 16:24. And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. That sounds pretty straightforward and very emphatic. We must leave self behind. We must renounce self. We cannot have any sin in our lives. Then Yeshua beheld him, loved him, this is the rich young ruler, and said unto him, One thing thou lackest, go thy way, sell whatsoever thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven. And come, take up the cross, and follow me. This young man was a Jew. He was keeping Torah and trying to live a godly life. He was earnestly seeking to please God, but he was a hoarder. His stuff was keeping him from reaching his goal. The same is true for all of us. I wondered, how much stuff do I have in my life that's keeping me from being as close as I could be to the Father? Nothing must get between us and God, because this makes us Gentiles. As Gentiles, and by the way, the word Gentile could also be translated heathen. So, as Gentiles, we are not in the covenant. In effect, we are saying we'd rather be owned by Satan. This is paganism. This is death. And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Luke 9:23. He required Abraham to leave his homeland, his kindred, and paganism behind, to follow God and become the father of the faithful. Only those who have followed in the steps of Abraham can claim to be his children. Otherwise, they are not under the blood of Yeshua. You cannot remain Gentile and be under that covenant. There is no other way to be saved. This is true for Jews as well as Gentiles. And think not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father. For I say unto you that God is able of these stones to raise up children unto Abraham. Matthew 3:9. Bring forth therefore fruits worthy of repentance, and begin not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father. For I say unto you that God is able of these stones to raise up children unto Abraham. There's a little repeat, but it makes it even more plain. It is fatal to think that we are safe if only we are part of the right group. My dad went through his whole life thinking that he was a shoo-in for heaven because his name was on the church books. But when it came to the time for him to die, he was terrified to die. He had no peace. So it's a very leaky vessel to put everything in. How many times have I heard Seventh-day Adventists quote Mrs. White about the ship going through? How many times have I heard them quote her as saying, there will not be another church? What she says is true. What they seem to be thinking is false. The denomination will not necessarily go through. The faithful will. Only those in the covenant will go through. In the denomination or out of it, it is the covenant that counts, not my name on the denominational roll. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus saith unto them, if ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. So what is he implying here? Isn't he implying that they are not Abraham's children? Ye are the children of the prophets and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, saying unto Abraham, and in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed. This is Acts 3:25. I believe that's part of the big speech there on the day of Pentecost. In order to redeem us, Christ had to become our nearest kinsman. Men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham, and whosoever among you feareth God, to you is the word of this salvation sent. Acts 13:26. So how are we grafted in? But we see Yeshua, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, should taste death for every man. Hebrews 2:9. For it became him, for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. That's verse 10. Before man sinned, he was not in any sense subject to sufferings. And for Jesus to have come in the nature of man as he was before sin entered, would have been only to come in a way and in a nature in which it would be impossible for him to know the sufferings of man and therefore impossible to reach him, to save him. But since it became him in bringing men unto glory to be made perfect through suffering, it is certain that Jesus, in becoming man, partook of the nature of man, as he is since he became subject to suffering of death, which is the wages of sin. And that is a quote out of The Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection. Great book. I highly recommend it. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is the devil. Hebrews 2:14. The children of men are partakers of flesh and blood, and because of this he took part of the same. But this is not all. He also took part of the same flesh and blood as that of which the children are partakers. Nor is this all. He also himself took part of the same flesh and blood as that of which the children of men are partakers. Nor yet is this all. He also himself likewise took part of the same flesh and blood as that of which men are partakers. Thus, the Spirit of inspiration so much desires that this truth shall be made so plain and emphatic as to be understood by all, that he is not content to use any fewer than all the words that could be used in the telling of it. And therefore it is declared that just as certainly as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same flesh and blood. Thus, Yeshua set up ahead of time this blood tie with mankind through Abraham in order to qualify himself for the task of saving the whole human family from the cruel bondage of sin. He not only took part in this blood brother covenant, he, by his every action during the ceremony, took the full responsibility for the keeping of it and for the fulfilling of its requirements. By this act, the Lord entered into the most solemn covenant known to the Oriental or to all mankind, the blood covenant, and thus became blood brother to Abraham, a relation which outranks every other relation in life. Now we understand this. Anybody that ever did this as a little kid, where you poke your finger and maybe write in blood, or you put your fingers together or whatever, we all understand that. It's a very, very solemn tie. Not only did it fall to one's kin to redeem them from bondage, it fell to one's nearest kinsman, as taught in the Gospel of Leviticus 25:24 to 28 and 47 to 49. It is also taught in the Gospel of Ruth in chapters 2, 3, and 4. We're going to look into that a little later. So we find that the same gospel of the New Testament is also preached in the Old Testament. The right of redemption falls to the nearest of kin, who is able. And Yeshua is the only one who is able. These folks who insist on saying that Yeshua was not quite like us in every respect, but only looked like us, are not basing their assertions upon the clear word of God. According to the Bible, he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. The only way in which he could possibly be tempted like as we are was to become in all things like as we are. There sprang from Abraham so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. These were also heirs of the same promise, for these also all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Mark this: the vast host of Abraham's descendants died in faith, not having received the promises. In harmony with these words that they died in faith, not having received the promises, but confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on earth, we have the words of King David hundreds of years after the deliverance from Egypt. I am a stranger with thee, and a sojourner, as all my fathers were. Psalm 39:12. And when at the height of his power he delivered the kingdom to his son Solomon in the presence of all the people, he said, for we are strangers before thee, and sojourners, as were all our fathers. Our days on the earth are as a shadow, and there is none abiding. 1 Chronicles 29:15. Abraham believed in Yeshua, and it was counted to him for righteousness. Since the preaching of the gospel is the preaching of the cross of Christ, and there is no salvation by any other means, and God preached the gospel to Abraham when he said, in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed, it is very clear that in that promise the cross of Christ was made known to Abraham. This is a point that needs to be well fixed in the mind at the very beginning. All the misunderstandings of the promises of God to Abraham and his seed have arisen through a failure to see the gospel of the cross of Christ in them. Make no mistake, that Abraham knew what the covenant was all about is inescapable. He knew what it meant to walk through the pieces. All of the patriarchs seem to be able to tell the difference between inheriting merely the wealth of the parents and the spiritual blessing of the birthright. I should stop there for a second because I want to remind you. Of course, you probably don't need reminding, but um, there are others listening, no doubt, and maybe they don't know. But um, Abraham had two kids. Well, he had more kids, but only one was allowed this birthright, even though he was not the eldest son. And then Jacob was not the eldest son, but he received the birthright. And so it's not it, and all of the kids knew, they understood the difference. Um, Reuben didn't receive the birthright either. I wanted to make that point, but there's a difference between inheriting the wealth and having that birthright, because the birthright is the birthright of being in the line of Messiah. And that was really important to them. That was something they really wanted. And they wanted to be able to hear God's voice. That was important to them. Okay, we'll go on now. The Abrahamic covenant directly affects our salvation. What does it mean to walk between the pieces? And I will give the men that have transgressed my covenant, which have not performed the words of the covenant, which they had made before me, when they cut the calf in twain and passed between the parts thereof. You remember that Israel at the foot of Sinai said those famous words, all that Jehovah has said, we will do. And then they walked between the pieces. They knew what it meant. They knew what it meant to be sprinkled with that blood. They knew what it meant. The princes of Judah and the princes of Jerusalem, the eunuchs and the priests, and all the people of the land which passed between the parts of the calf, Did I skip something? I bet I did. Did I read that one, honey?
No.
I didn't read this.
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'll go back here. And I will give the men that have transgressed my covenant, which have not performed the words of the covenant which they had made before me, when they cut the calf in twain and passed between the parts thereof, the princes of Judah and the princes of Jerusalem, the eunuchs and the priests, and all the people of the land which passed between the parts of the calf. I will even give them into the hand of their enemies, which was merciful, by the way, and into the hand of them that seek their life. And their dead bodies shall be for meat unto the fowls of the heaven and to the beasts of the earth. When you walk between those pieces, you are saying, in effect, and a lot of times they would raise their right hand and they would say, swear this, may what happened to these animals happen to me, and worse, if I break this covenant. Let us be clear. All those who are outside the covenant, Gentile or Jew, are all marked for death. And remember, right after Israel had made that covenant with Jehovah, they made the golden calf. The very thing he had said, that was the first commandment. And there they are. There they are, worshiping other gods. Well, they called it Jehovah, but come on, really? So, when God said, "Step aside, I'm going to destroy them, Moses, and we'll just start over with you," he had every right to do that. What they had said, in effect, was just what we went through here just a minute ago. The swearing, when you raise the right hand, you say, "May what happened to these animals happen to me, and worse, if I break this covenant." So they understood covenant. They all understood it back then. And so this wasn't something that they really entered into not knowing what they were doing. In making the covenant with Abraham, God was making a covenant with all who might want to enter. The covenant is for our salvation, everyone's. But upon entering it, we agree to the terms. If we resist the terms, we return to our lost condition. I have to have both things in place. If one is a Jew, he must accept Messiah. There is no other name under heaven whereby we might be saved. But by the same token, I must leave the paganism I was brought up with and attach myself to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to come under the covenant he made with Abraham. Otherwise, Yeshua is not my Redeemer kinsman. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice come from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. And yet, where do we see all the churches going now? Uh, every denomination, virtually every denomination, is out there kissing the Pope's ring and trying to make friends. And David Gates was told not very long ago, you leave the Jesuits alone. The Jesuits are our friends. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just not true. It never has been. So, what we have seen so far is that the covenant is sacred, and to break it means death. And covenant is a family thing. God never made a covenant with Gentiles. In order to come under this covenant, one must leave behind paganism and self centeredness. In order to redeem us, Christ had to become our nearest kinsman. Abraham believed in Yeshua, and it was counted to him for righteousness. The Abrahamic covenant directly affects our salvation. You know, we're going into a time in which every one of us is going to have to learn to live completely by faith and trust. Our faith is going to be tested far beyond anything we've ever experienced to date. And we just really need to learn to walk that same walk as Abraham did, and following God, even when it looks like it might be the wrong direction. We have to trust our Savior. What we're going to learn in the next one is, and I'm sorry, this has taken very little time. It usually takes me a whole lot longer to do this. I think because I was in a group that could interrupt me all the time. Well, maybe we'll have a discussion afterwards. But what we're going to see is the difference between Israel and Judah, or the Jews. And there's a reason why I make that distinction. And you'll see that in there. Israel has been scattered abroad. God wants to gather Israel in. And there's a problem with that desire and how it's solved. And so you can go ahead and unmute now. And if you have questions or anything, feel free.
I just wanted to share something. One of the things I learned in Hebrew class, something you mentioned was that if God could make children of Abraham out of the stones, well, it's kind of a play on words, because the word for stones is a one letter different from the word ben or son. So it was kind of making fun of, it wouldn't take much for God to make that one letter change.
That's interesting. Oh, that's good. I love Hebrew anyway because it does stuff like.
I wonder if she could repeat that.
Peggy, can you share?
Peggy, repeat what she said.
Somebody's making a lot of noise. Can you stop your share?
Oh, yes, I can. Second here.
Can you repeat that?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Who was it that told David Gates not to talk about the Jesuits? Was that the conference?
Yes, Ted Wilson.
Ted Wilson.
Okay, thanks.
I went to see David Gates in Quito, Ecuador, and sitting next to him during that one conference, David Gates told me that Ted Wilson said, "Leave the Jesuits alone. They're our friends."
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Jesuits alone. There are.
That's what David Gates told me personally.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see, who was that said that about the stones? Could you repeat that, please?
Sure, that was me, Kim.
Oh, good, Kim. Okay.
In my Hebrew class, my teacher was saying that it was kind of a play on words. The word for son is ben, and I can't remember the word for stone, but it's like one letter or one vowel different. So he was kind of making fun of it, that it wouldn't take much to make stones into sons of Abraham.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Oh,
Make sons from sons?
Stones.
Well, if stones are almost sons. Wait, I'm gonna look up the Hebrew word.
Oh,
What's the Hebrew word for stone?
I could turn on my phone, but then it makes an awful racket.
In the darkness.
My computer's a little slow, so when it comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Hey, Randy, are you on there? Did you make it work? Your new computer?
I can.
You gonna, there you are.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen.
Yes, it's working.
Yay.
Peggy, that was very good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was very good.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn things.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna mute everybody for a minute except Karen.
Okay.
So unmute yourself, Karen. That way we can see you.
Okay, I'm here. Is that working?
That's better.
Okay.
I can see your lippies move.
And you see the lippies move with the sound.
You don't look like some of those Oriental movies. Right, well, good, then we can have, and is Randy gonna do that one, he said, let's see, the science of salvation? There he is.
Yep, I am.
Okay, does anybody want to do anything? We got some time, we got like 15 minutes. I'm still finding people getting.
I thought,
Huh?
What'd you say? You muted yourself.
Randy's getting ready to talk.
Karen,
Oh, Randy?
Yeah, but he's muted himself.
did you unmute me?
He's got 15 minutes.
Karen's gonna, well, it's better to start now, and because that way they can get things sorted out, because he's doing it.
Get it again, Karen. You're muted.
Okay, unmute. How's
There you
that?
go.
How come you have that? And
All right.
And there's
I
two on here now, so, and there's a lot of them watching on YouTube and Roku and the website, so. Like,
now my lips are in sync with my voice, right?
yeah, yours isn't. Did you do that on purpose?
I can hear him pretty fine.
Okay. Well,
Whoops, wait, sorry. I did it again.
you did what?
Okay, go ahead.
I appreciated what Peggy had to say because I actually did a sermon on the blood covenant and the blood brothers. And what's fascinating is when you read that in Genesis 15, you discover that their lamp that comes through a furnace and a lamp that runs through between the animals, and it consumes both sides. Now that's very meaningful because God pledged himself right then that regardless of what would happen, his covenant would not fail. Even if his kingdom had to be torn apart, the covenant was going to go through. And you see God,
He froze. Oh, your bandwidth is low. It's not working.
can
you-
anybody hear me?
No, and it went down to small and it says that Karen Brim's network bandwidth is low.
So sorry. But it's working better. I mean, before when I'd raise my hand would be way behind from what I raised it here, and then I'd see it on the screen and would be way behind, like my lips and my sound. So it seems to me like it's working better.
It's a little picture before it was bigger.
Let me see if we. This is my wife's little notebook. Is that better? Picture better?
It's just small, but
Oh.
I can see you.
Okay, well, I think that's about as good as we can get. It's amazing how the computers we have all had some issue in the last 4 or 5 days, which is kind of disappointing. And I don't want to do it on the phone. We have both of Karen and I have iPhones, but quite frankly, we're not really that impressed with the picture. It looks like it magnifies my double chin.
There you go. Now you're bigger.
Now I'm bigger.
Yep.
Okay.
That's not what he wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's just exactly what I wanted to hear. I'm bigger. Oh, you see, we got Tuxedo here.
Yes.
The little shiny eyes.
Poor little mutt.
You're still the same handsome guy I knew and know.
Who, Tuxedo or me?
You.
Oh, okay. Well, Karen has Tuxedo here with us. So he needed,
I was hoping to see him.
well, hold him up so they can see him. He needs a haircut really, really bad.
Oh, cutie. Oh,
So cute.
He was supposed to get that haircut last week, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And the cat.
And the cat jumped on him and he couldn't walk.
oh.
The cat's heavier than he is. And the cat's a psycho. So it's really interesting. He looks like a big fluffy ball because of the way they cut him last time. And the cat just annoys him. No, I have a spray bottle so that I can spray her whenever she starts annoying Tuxedo. That's the only intervention that works. But I really, I miss being there at Terabella.
Well, we're all here.
What's he growling at?
He's hearing noises.
Oh, Tux is growling because he's hearing noises he's not used to hearing.
There's Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Hi. Good to see you. Waiting for your message.
Yeah, what time is it? It's
I don't know.
I don't know either. 3:50.
Oh, there you go.
So
Yeah.
we got 10 minutes.
Yeah. You got
Well,
time to go.
Yeah.
How's he doing?
How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Super good.
I saw your picture with the stroller and the little
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah, we were out there hiking. We were gonna do some more walking, but we ran into some people and we're talking. But yeah,
You stayed
no, we
six-
were sharing some good stuff. Actually, someone wandered over while I was talking to one of the feast keepers we ran into, and a guy just started listening in. And soon enough, he was in the conversation as well out there in the forest, and he wanted to know more about this and that and everything. And so that was fun. I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh boy. Am I on? Is he on? Who knows?
Our internet is unstable.
Our internet. It looks like our internet is unstable.
Okay. Yeah, mine is too.
We have it through MediaCom.
Well, thank you, buddy.
Huh. Yeah. Well, at least our power just came back on, so we can do a little more now. We haven't had power since yesterday.
You haven't had power since yesterday?
Yeah. So we're living the real Passover, okay?
You're doing the real off grid.
Real off grid. No leaven. No. Yeah, we got pestilence. We've got. What's he doing? And no power. So yeah, we're really living it.
Okay. Look at that.
You say hi, buddy? You say hi? Hello.
Because
Hi.
I'm reaching for something.
Yep. What are you reaching for, huh? Yeah? Yeah, it's Randy and Karen. You say hi? Hi. Hi.
Randy married to mommy and daddy.
That's right.
Glad you guys got your power back.
Yeah.
Hey, Grandpa.
Hi. Look at
Everything,
that happy,
buddy.
handsome guy.
Yeah.
That's another deal we have out here is PG&E can shut us down anytime they want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's what Dad was saying. Yeah, that's really inviting.
I'm so
We
glad
had-
we have Edison.
We had a large tree on our property take down the big main lines on the property here. It fell.
Oh yeah.
So we were down a day. In fact, last Sabbath when you guys, it took us out. Boom.
That's why you're an electrician. You fixed it.
That's a pretty big fix.
That's what you do. That's why Christopher should
You
come
know,
back on.
I think in a lot of ways we have no idea all the different ways that we have become so enamored and entangled with what the world does and how it and
Yes.
Yeah.
Dependent on the world. Ugh.
dependent on it. Yeah. And I think that's what's going to be one of the most hard things to get used to. So we might as well get used to it now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Heidi gave us a generator for our house.
Nice.
Good.
At least not lose, all the refrigerator and all that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's big enough to really run the whole house. It would be just.
Yeah.
Jerry and Peggy and their friends Tricia and her husband, they were kind enough. Teresa, excuse me. They were kind enough to allow us to send a generator to their place so that we could have a sizable generator, because California has so many terrible laws. you can't have anything in California anymore. Everything's against the rules. So we were able to get a nice generator, and we went over to their place a few weeks ago and picked it up. So yeah, generators are definitely becoming a part of the thing here in California, no doubt about it.
Well, the one thing that was very interesting is when all the power went out and they shut it all down, you went outside, you were amazed of all the extraneous noise that you get used to.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And the carbon monoxide.
Well, have you seen the pictures of Los Angeles? I mean, you can actually see a skyline. It's absolutely amazing. They had a picture of I-15.
Yeah.
8 lanes each direction.
Yeah.
Empty.
Nobody on it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And a few weeks ago, they were bumper to bumper, barely moving.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. 8 lanes. I know I was down there a couple of years ago, and that just, it astounded me. All those lanes, and you were bumper to bumper everywhere you went.
Yeah.
I am so thankful I don't live down in LA anymore.
Yeah.
I used to
that's
get around, and
funny.
now I go down there and it's not the same. I mean, it's busier, but it's just, I had it all down pat when I lived there, but now I don't have any desire to drive in LA.
Yeah.
I agree.
But it's really has changed the air quality in some of these places where it's really bad. All of a sudden it's got good air quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add. Yeah, I would add, when it comes to everything I keep talking about with the Pope and his agenda for the solution for climate change, we need to rest, right? When you have the evidence, we have statistics now that show that we stop driving so much so we can help reduce the CO2, but You said it there. If there are better statistics around the world now to show that all these people are sitting at home and the CO2 level, drops or appears to drop, that is some quite lovely evidence to defend your view on climate change and a rest day. So that is something I hadn't thought about, but yeah, indeed.
I have had a guy on Facebook that has repeatedly suggested supermarkets close on Sunday. And I remember answering to him, why does it have to be Sunday? Why not just required one day out of the week you don't do something? And let people choose. If they're Muslim, they'll choose Friday. If they're Jewish and Sabbatarian, they'll choose Sabbath. And if they're Sunday keepers, they'll choose Sunday. But let them make the choice of what they want to do.
Right.
It seems to always have to be on the Pope's Sabbath.
Well, it's a very common day for everybody, right? The majority. You guys are kind of in the minority. Yeah.
Has anybody heard about what David Gates is saying? That they're gonna that this will be a lull here. Pretty soon it'll level off. David Gates is saying something is going to hit real hard, a lot harder than it is now.
Licensing even made us put signs
that will
on
get
the
him
wall,
settled out.
so they came and
But
they
David
checked,
seems to
and
think
here they
there's
are,
something
and
going to
I
happen.
told him,
But
these are the people that are making
we
us
know
wash
about
our
David
hands
Gates,
now.
don't we?
Somebody's
You know,
on the
washing
phone.
your
I
hands
can't
is
hear
nothing
you
new.
because someone else is
But it's
really.
not a fight.
Somebody's.
Put me in a fight. I already washed. He comes to me.
That might be my wife.
Okay, pictures from the. I also wanted to tell you really quick that Carol and Dan are watching, I think on YouTube. So say hi to Dan and Carol, they'll hear you.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan and Carol.
Hello.
Welcome aboard.
At home, so they're watching.
Dan and Carol usually send a text to Karen and I every Sabbath, which I really appreciate.
That was cool.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. I unmuted myself finally.
Hi,
Carol.
Hi, Sarah.
I see the B man, Mr. and Mrs. B man.
The thing to take note of, though, since all of this pollution seems to be clearing due to the non-traffic, is will the disasters go away, though? Which they probably won't.
But then they'll try and say we need to stay that way.
Well, then Ellen White says that they will say that it's our disobedience to keeping Sunday that is the reason why all these bad things are happening.
Right.
Great controversy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it'll come.
Yep, it is going to come.
Hi, George.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, where's Sarah? I wanted to say hi to Sarah.
Who?
Sarah?
Sarah?
Yeah, I saw her behind Chris.
There she is.
Yep. Well, it looks like it's 4 o'clock.
It may be baby feeding time.
When he starts, if you guys can mute yourself, it would help. Because otherwise.
Okay, we'll mute ourselves.
And Isaiah.
Yeah.
Elijah.
Hi.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's so cute. Yeah. You say hi? You ready for the next message, buddy? Yeah.
I'm ready for,
Pastor Randy Brems.
I'm ready for bed.
Now I tell people I'm not Pastor Randy Brems anymore. I retired.
Sure. Yeah. Uh-huh. Retired. That's what Grandpa said. Uh-huh. He never did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, I find retirement very boring.
Uh-huh.
You might be retired, Randy, from the